This is a 225 Q&A practice test. Plaintiff Attorney Mr. Trask, capital T-R-A-S-K. Defense Attorney Mr. Morris, capital M-O-R-R-I-S. And we'll start with Plaintiff Attorney. Ready? Here we go. Yes, that would be, or you can go down to the car and download at the car also. As a practical matter, experience tells you that's not always an easy thing to do. I always downloaded mine. I can only speak from my personal knowledge after every call right into the computer in the car. Not every call requires recording, does it? Every call does not. Yes, you're right. My point is, say you have several self-initiated contacts one after another. There may not always be time to match the numbers to the recording at that time. Would that be fair to say? There may not be time, true. Okay, thank you. And this matching the recordings to events can be compounded. Let's say an officer is not able to make the downloads at the end of shift, right? If they couldn't do it, then would that make it worse? Yes, I have no idea. Well, I'll ask another question. Would it be fair to say it's not uncommon for officers to have to work overtime? It's not uncommon, no. And sometimes would it be uncommon for an officer to work overtime on a certain day and then be off for a couple days, right? Yes. And the best practice would be to download them that night, right? You agree there are events that may occur that prevent an officer from downloading the recordings on that exact day, right? Yes, and the process of matching up recordings to events could become quite difficult the more time that passes from the last event to the point should a lot of time go by, right? I can only speak of my own experience. I never had any difficulty. It's not rocket science. It's just adding, putting a number with a recording. So I couldn't tell you whether it's difficult for people. It doesn't seem very difficult for me, but it would be worse if somebody, let's say, worked overtime, didn't get a chance to download the recordings, come back 2 days later. Now they would have to do some research to match events to recordings, right? Yeah, I guess. I can only imagine. Yes. Thank you. Is it the policy of Northview Police that an officer responding to another officer's self-initiated activity, they should also make a recording? Yes, Sergeant, I wanted to take you back to People's 42, what you described as the incident recall for the night that Liz Roth, I think it was that both Liz Ross described for us on Main and South Street. I think one of the last questions counsel asked you, was it policy that other officers record stops even though if it's not their stop? Yes, if they assist, yes. Okay, when you pull this recall sheet, are you able to look into whether or not any recordings exist from the incident? Yes. Okay, and how do you do that? You just look up that file number in the upper left corner. You plug that file number into another database, it's a database which records all the physical reports and digital recordings. You enter that file number or any file number you're curious about, and every recording that's generated from that incident will show up there. For example, if 10 people downloaded a recording on one incident, once you run that incident, you'll see 10 recordings. Okay, and you said that you were previously a detective. Yes. Now, do they have the ability to go and get those different recordings? Yes. Okay, and as a former detective, and now, Sergeant, did you go and look to see if there's any recordings under this incident number? Yes. How are those recordings kept? Are they kept on some kind of special database that keeps them for how long? Do you know? An event like this where there is a criminal case attached to it, then they keep them for the length of the trial and then any appeals process. I think they keep the audio recordings. There is a time frame on it. I want to say it's 3 years, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay, did you search this number to see if there's any recordings? Yes. Okay, and how many came up, if any? Two. Now, we heard one of the recordings when Liz Roth was testifying. Was that one of the recordings you were talking about? Yes. And you said that there was a second one? Yes. Okay, and have you had the chance to listen to that? Yes. Sergeant, have you ever talked to Jim Hughes before? Yes. Would you say over 100 times at least? I don't know about 100 times, but how many times would you say if you had to estimate? Maybe less than 50. Okay, more than 30? Yes. Okay, did you hear the part where someone said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a report and that's all I can do now? Yes. Did you know that voice? I think it's Jim Hughes on the tape. Who do you know that voice to be? Jim Hughes. Okay, when you're the first on a call, is that the person that's supposed to take the report? Yes. Yes. And were you able to tell who the initial on this call was based on People's 42, the incident recall? Yes. And who was that? Jim Hughes. Did you look to see if any report was ever run by Jim Hughes? Yes. Was there one? No. Now defense counsel was asking you if there's training on the CLETs that officers know that they're recorded. It shows that someone's been run. Do you recall that line of questioning? Yes. How many CLETs are done in a day? Do you know? I couldn't tell the exact figure. It's a lot. Let me ask you, when you make a phone call, Sergeant, do you know that's also recorded, not recorded, but put into? I mean, we saw there the phone records. Are you aware that they're actually kept? I am now. I'll publish People's 42. All right, Sergeant, looking at this printout, this is the call that we've just been talking about occurring on 4/2/10. Yes, sir. Okay, and just looking at this, can you see that about 6 officers responded to this call? I will ask you now, do you see evidence that Jim Hughes responded to this call? Yes. Officer Zach? Yes. Officer Olson? Yes. Officer Rosen? Yes. Officer Vincent? Yes. Officer James? Yes. Would you agree that 6 people? Yes. Any reason to believe any more officers responded to this call that aren't on this printout? No. All right, the word list. We have Northview, capital Northview. Liz Roth, capital Liz, new word, capital Roth. Jim Hughes, capital Jim, new word, capital Hughes. Olson, capital Olson. Rosen, capital Rosen. Vincent, capital Vincent. James, capital James. CLETS, and that's an acronym. It's CLETS, all caps, no periods, no spaces. CLETS. And that is it for the word list. And that will conclude our 225 Q&A practice test.